The Sweet 16 is in, but Hubert Davis is out at UNC. We'll hit it all with Brian Hammer and Mark Norman. Going to make us laugh. We'll make him cry talking about the Saints. We'll see how that goes. And TTL, Tiger, is there a master plan? We'll find out. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we're rack stacked packed, ready to get you caught up on everything you need. So much to get to, including a ton of basketball action as we're in the midst of the NCAA tournament. But Caroline, today is also a big day for all the draft heads across the world because it is Ty Simpson's pro day, which means even more hype about to come for an Alabama quarterback that now suddenly is being debated everywhere. We got Orlovsky out here telling everybody as we're a month away that he thinks Ty Simpson is better than Fernando, and all of a sudden people are losing their minds. So I got plenty to say on this. You got plenty to say on this. Let's just start there. Today, would you take Fernando or Ty Simpson?
I would say Fernando Mendoza. Like, not really,
right
like,
answer.
not even really a question. And I'm sure you're saying that totally as an unbiased media member who does not have any sort of Raiders affiliation in the slightest. No.
Thank you for
the
noticing.
reason why there are several reasons why I would take Fernando Mendoza over Ty Simpson, but I think the primary one, especially when you are an organization like the Raiders that is going to plug and play a young quarterback, and when you need a young quarterback right now, today, you are ready to start building for the future, I will defer to experience really more than anything. And we're seeing more experienced quarterbacks come into the NFL, right? You look at players like Jaden Daniels, who was a standout breakout star in his freshman season. Well, Jaden Daniels was in college for 5 years, and he was a 4-year, 5-year starter. So you're seeing guys that are staying in college longer and have more college experience. So it feels like that NFL learning curve, while it's very much so still there for any quarterback that's making the leap to the big leagues, it doesn't feel as daunting. I look at Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson has attempted 523 passes. Jaden Daniels attempted about 2,000 when he came out of LSU into the NFL draft. So it's not enough experience for me. That's not enough time on task for me. And that, I would say, is the primary reason why I would take Fernando Mendoza over Ty Simpson. I hear Dan Orlovsky, though, Fitzy. And look, I defer to Dan Orlovsky when it comes to the school of quarterbacking, right? Dan Orlovsky's probably forgotten more about playing the position of quarterback than I will ever know about playing the position of quarterback. But I think it's also important to point out that, what we're hearing, like, we don't really have to, reinvent the wheel here. There's always going to be buzz around guys that deserve it. There's going to be reports, there's going to be gossip, there's going to be little, inklings of what teams might be doing. So I hear Dan, I understand Dan, and look, Dan might have his own personal preference of quarterback. Let's not act like every single quarterback is the same or is cut from the same cloth. Like, different quarterbacks have different personalities, they have different styles, different things that they're good at, different weaknesses. You might just have different strokes for different folks. But if Ty Simpson was, in fact, the best quarterback in this draft, and that was a unanimous kind of thought and opinion throughout the NFL, we'd be hearing more about Ty Simpson than we are. But for now, it's Fernando Mendoza, and it's everybody else.
I think, there's so much here. Let's start with number one, Dan Orlovsky. And full transparency, Dan's a friend. And I want to stress this to anybody that thinks that Dan's out here running propaganda. I text Dan after the take. We're going to get Dan on this show at some point. He's going to talk to all of us about it. But I can't say this loud enough. Dan Orlovsky genuinely believes that Ty Simpson is a better quarterback. And he texted me that. And also made it clear that he still believes Fernando Mendoza is very good. He just prefers Ty Simpson. And this is the funny thing to me, because at the end of the day, we start looking at this and everybody wants to make this some big, oh my God, what's Dan doing? He's stirring everything up. I guess, Caroline, if you and I, how much I love ice cream. I love ice cream. If you and I walked into an ice cream place today and we were asked to pick the best ice cream, I don't like chocolate ice cream. It's just it's not a flavor of ice cream I like. So does that mean that chocolate sucks? No. Does that mean that vanilla is better? To me, yeah. If we were drafting ice cream flavors, we would draft differently. You and I may not see the same thing out of 32 flavors of ice cream. It's okay for Dan Orlovsky to believe that another quarterback is better. And he says he texted 12 to 15 GMs. Dan's also particularly an honest dude. For anyone that knows Dan, he's a faith-based person that lives his life on the up and up. So Dan is not out here running propaganda. He's not out here lying for clicks. He's not out here creating content. Dan believes that Ty Simpson's a better quarterback. And that's okay. Like, I see all the conspiracy theorists that want to tell me that CAA is Dan's agent and it's Tannenbaum's agent, and that's why all of a sudden everybody's doing this. Again, I'm going to be clear. ESPN fired me. So if there's anybody in the world that wants to come out and tell you some negative thing about ESPN, it could be me. I could come out and do that. I'm telling you as somebody that has worked with Dan Orlovsky and Mike Tannenbaum, text both regularly, and consider both to be friends. They're honest. They're just honest people. Everybody wants to make it some weird thing. I have so many friends that are rep by CAA. I personally am not, but I have so many friends that are. I have never had a single person sit in front of camera that I know in my life, rep by CAA, that gave you an opinion informed by CAA. You can convince a conspiracy theorist of another conspiracy, never of the facts. The fact is here, yes, CAA, by the way, is wildly powerful and controls so much because they have great relationships at ESPN. So many talent that you see on air every day are represented by CAA because they have great relationships with the people behind the scenes whose names you don't know that decide who's going to be on what show. And CAA does a great job of doing what they do. CAA doesn't need to go to Tannenbaum or Orlovsky and say, here's the opinion you have to have on Ty Simpson because we rep him. Everybody wants to make the world that. It isn't. Dan just believes Ty Simpson is better. Tannenbaum, who doesn't believe that Ty Simpson is better, simply tweeted in support of it. Hey, I've talked to GMs around the league that agree with that. It's okay. Why does it matter to so many people if an analyst sits up there and says, well, I think this quarterback's better? Caroline, this is what blows my mind. You know me. You reference my Raiders fandom. I'm a fan of a team that wears shoulder pads to games and full like outfits and Darth Vader masks, and they swear by the intimidation that comes from the fan base. That is the same fan base that now is whining like little babies because an analyst doesn't like the quarterback that they're going to take first overall. Like, we're not children here. Stop acting like it. I don't understand why everybody's so worked up. It's okay for smart people to differ on the opinion of who the best quarterback is in this year's draft.
I think we all care too much about what other people's opinions are. This is just one example of that. Like, saying that you like one guy or prefer quarterback style, or, hey, I think this team is really good. When you say that, it doesn't mean I hate everyone else that plays that position, or I like your rival team, so your team sucks. It's not what that means. So to everybody getting all up in their feels about Dan Orlovsky's opinion, the only opinion that should matter are the people who's actually making decisions for your football organization. And if they make right decisions and good decisions, you'll win football games. And if they don't, they'll get fired. And that's life in the National Football League. I also think it's really easy to kind of, nitpick little things and use a tiny anecdote of Dan Orlovsky's rep by CAA, and so is Ty Simpson. I'm going to let everybody in on a little secret here. A lot of people are repped by CAA. Like, it's not like every single, talking head that's repped by CAA is saying the exact same thing about Ty Simpson, or every single player in the NFL that is also repped by CAA. Another peek behind the curtain. A lot of players are rep by CAA as well. So you can't, pump up the draft stock of one CAA client when there's probably, fair to say, hundreds of CAA clients that are going into this NFL draft. So it's easy to nitpick that and easy to look at that in a vacuum and say, oh, conspiracy theory, Dan Orlovsky is just has, some sort of ulterior motive. I think that we all just kind of overblow that way, way, way too much. I think it's also important to point out that Dan Orlovsky is paid, I'm not going to pocket watch here, but I'm going to assume fairly handsomely, for his opinions and for his insight. I don't think, and that's his reputation. His reputation is his football opinion, it's his football breakdowns and his insight. I don't think Dan Orlovsky is the type of person that is willing to put his livelihood and his reputation on the line just for the bottom line of those who represent him. And I don't mean that to be like a negative thing. That's just really just kind of the integrity that I believe that Dan Orlovsky has. I think we all need to calm down about one person's opinion about one quarterback versus another in this year's draft.
Just go back and look every year. And again, I make the joke often on this show, but I am the old guy, and I am the guy that has been a draft fanatic my entire life. Since I was a kid, I've loved the NFL draft. I'm old enough to remember when there were true debates actually happening, even in a different news cycle, about whether Ryan Leaf was going to be a better quarterback than Peyton Manning. That's an actual thing. There were people that thought Ryan Leaf should be the first overall pick, not Peyton Manning, right? Like Josh Allen was the third quarterback selected in his respected draft. Lamar Jackson was the fifth. Patrick Mahomes was the second quarterback selected in his draft, right? Like you can go up and down the list. The number of times we're wrong about quarterbacks happens all the time. So now what you have is you have a bunch of people that are looking at a lot of film. And, again, if you ask 10 of your friends what their favorite pizza is and break it down, are you going to get the same opinion all the way across the board? No. And even if you get pizza experts, if you get 10 of the best chefs in the world to come in and decide they're going to break down what restaurants are good, you're going to get differing opinions. It's okay for somebody that played in the NFL, which, by the way, is something most of us could never imagine accomplishing. Somebody that was at one point in the time in his life one of the 60 best in the world at what he did. Dan Orlovsky played in the NFL. He sees tape and he sees it a certain way. There are going to be some teams that agree with him and some teams that don't. To me, the Ty Simpson train is only going to get even louder today, Caroline, because it is his pro day. So now he's going to make a bunch of designed pre-practice throws to teammates on no opponents, and he's going to have a great time doing it. It's going to look absolutely great. Your time on task point earlier was an important one. There just isn't a lot of film. That's what makes me uncomfortable with Ty Simpson. But frankly, that doesn't have to make everybody uncomfortable. I worked with Dan at ESPN during the draft that Anthony Richardson was selected. He loved Anthony Richardson because even though there was a limited amount of tape, he loved some of the stuff that you simply can't coach. It just reminds us that everybody has different things they're looking for. There's such nuance to this. It's okay to fall in love with the quarterback. By the way, the win for the league would be if both of them are great. If Fernando and Ty are both great. Like, I'd love a situation where the Jets can sit around and maybe not at two, maybe it's with their second pick in the first round. The Jets just stumble into Ty Simpson. The Giants feel better today about their franchise than you ever could imagine, not because of the first pick that they made in last year's draft, but because of the second pick that they made in last year's draft. It's because they went back into the first round and they got themselves Jackson Dart. So, look, I think quarterbacks offer hope. So if Ty Simpson can offer more hope, that's great. But today, if you're sitting here worried about whether an analyst approves of your pick or not, I guess my question is like, why do you care? I said the same thing last year to Titans fans that were losing their minds because the media was saying that Cam Ward wasn't going to be good enough. Or the year before that, when Bears fans were like, oh, why is everybody suddenly trying to make Caleb Williams complicated? Or why are they saying that Caleb won't want to play here? Every year, the team that picks first, the fan base that picks first whines at a level that I'm just not ready to handle. Like, you are picking first because your team sucks. And you know what? Because your team sucks, people are going to question everything you do. Why? Because you're so bad that you're picking first. So, yeah, you're not going to get a lot of benefit of the doubt. Guess what? You haven't earned it. So go out there, make the pick. And look, John Spytek isn't listening to Dan Orlovsky. John Spytek and Clint Kubiak are making their own decision in a room based on the information they have. What Orlovsky or Tannenbaum or any other media member, what any of us have to say isn't going to influence that room. If you're a fan, just sit back, wait, let the draft play out. Let your guy get on the field. Let your guy have the opportunity, and then let it go out in front of you. If Orlovsky's right and Ty Simpson's a better quarterback and you're a Raiders fan and you're losing your mind about it, you're going to be losing your mind for years. If Orlovsky's wrong, none of it's going to matter because you have your quarterback of the future. So I'd say to everybody, Caroline, like, this is win-win. Just let it play out.
And if John Spytek is listening to Dan Orlovsky, the Raiders have much bigger problems on their hands. Again, no disrespect to Dan Orlovsky, but you don't want your GM and your front office to be listening to people like us that do what we do, right? You need to do what's best for your organization. Like, if John Spytek is listening to Dan Orlovsky, congratulations. You're the Jets. Congratulations. You're an organization that picks quarterbacks based off of Madden ratings and what his 13, 14-year-old son thinks. So everybody just needs to take a chill pill. This is the time of year, right, that we have nothing else to think about and nothing else to marinate on. And for that matter, we as football fans, as sports fans, we are just such gluttons for punishment. That's why we do what we do. We are lacking something to be mad about, that we have to cherry pick something that pisses us off. So we just have to fill our time and fill our brains with something. So nitpicking Dan Orlovsky's evaluation of Ty Simpson, and by the way, Ty Simpson, I think, is going to be a very successful quarterback in the NFL. He's got a heck of an arm. He carried Alabama for a large portion of last season. He has the mentality that you want for a quarterback, right? Like, he'll do anything for the team. He's a coach's son. He checks all of these boxes. There is nothing wrong with giving Ty Simpson his praise. I don't think there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. And by the way, nobody views Fernando Mendoza as a can't-miss prospect. I'm high on Fernando Mendoza. If I was John Spytek, I would take Fernando Mendoza. But there have been a lot of guys that I would have taken in the NFL draft that haven't panned out in the NFL. So it's not like Fernando Mendoza is this, this kind of can't miss kind of prospect, that just the idea of entertaining another player at that position is just unfathomable. No, of course not.
If you don't like the opinion, if you think the opinion is biased or being bought by an agent, if you think all of this is just sort of a game, just stop consuming it. We hope that what we offer you here is a show that gives you balanced opportunity to make your decisions on what you like, what you don't like. But at the end of the day, if you feel like you're just getting biased stuff that's not worth supporting, the way you stop that is stop supporting it. It's simple. It's on everybody's
just take
feet.
A walk.
Yeah, go touch grass. Everybody touch grass.
Outside.
The draft is right around the corner. Yeah. Just get out there, play with some kids, touch some grass, and get out there and remind yourself that life is good. All right, coming up, we got to get back to college basketball because we had huge news yesterday. One of the most premier programs in the country looking for a coach. We'll tell you what it means for North Carolina.
Criticism like that from a coach in the moment, how are you feeling when that's happening and the film's on screen?
Yeah, man, I think it's you listen more to the message and not the tone of the message. I mean, I think it's actually better to get called out than to not, because it shows not only like you're not worried about getting your feelings hurt. Like, they're not worried about hurting my feelings. And that's something I love about our coach. Like, he's not really worried about hurting your feelings. He's going to tell you, shoot it to you straight. And for me, like, I've always thrived under coaches that do that.
We are ranking the biggest robberies in MLS histories, the players who looked at their team owners and said, thanks for the cash, and gave absolutely nothing in return. If your team is on this list, we are very, very sorry. Danielson, FC Dallas. His contract was for $879,000.
If you're watching this, look at his photo. He don't even look interested to be there in the photo.
With 10 appearances, he effectively got nearly $100,000 per game.
I'm sitting there watching Unreal, and they're talking about you in WWE at the Royal Rumble, just being thrown into the ring. You ever getting back in the ring for one of those opportunities again after that injury?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we got WrestleMania coming up, so you maybe see me in there, you maybe not. I'm just not trying to get beat up, but we'll see. We'll see. Like, I got beat up too much times. My body can't take that anymore.
Little teaser from the one and only Nate Diaz, unfinished business. And then he expanded on that on Twitter and said, I'll see you soon. I'm coming.
What about Dustin? Dustin versus Nate. Big fight. That could be a co-main or a main for a big fight card.
One that we always wanted to see.
One that Dustin has said, that'll get me out of retirement. The UFC could use him more than ever. They need stars now.
Sources: Hubert Davis will not return as North Carolina's head coach for Pete Thamel. He spent the last 5 years as the head coach of the Tar Heels, compiling a 125-54 record, which doesn't sound all that bad. Reached a national title game in his first year there, which feels like a lifetime ago. So, look, I think, Caroline, we've been preparing the last couple of days for this possibility. It seems like the writing was in the sand. It seems like we've been on the heels of this thing. When you first see this, is this the right decision in your mind for North Carolina?
It is. It is. And I said this last week after North Carolina lost to VCU, that it is time to move on from Hubert Davis. And look, Hubert Davis, I'm sure is a great man, is a fine person, and he absolutely has, built that program and his team and his coaching staff with a lot of care and with a lot of respect. But North Carolina is a program with elite standards. The expectation is excellence. And North Carolina has fallen short of excellence darn near every single year that Hubert Davis has taken over. And it's fair to look back at his trip to the national championship and say, yeah, well, maybe that was more to do with Roy Williams and the roster that he constructed much more than it is about Hubert Davis. Because since then, North Carolina's missed the tournament entirely. Now, they did go to the Sweet 16 the year after that, but they followed that up with 2 early exits before the Sweet 16. That's not elite. That's not excellence. So when you have a certain standard that you hold in a high regard, and you're not meeting that standard, then you need to go out and find someone who is. Do you agree with the decision?
Yes, 100%. I think I go back and forth because, I'm scared to change, that. And anytime you bring in a coach, I wonder if the coach is actually going to be better. But to your point, you have to look at a program and say, okay, why are we not meeting our expectations? So is it because we're not well funded? Well, we know that's not the answer. Is it because we can't get talent? We know that's not the answer. I will say the only sort of caveat is this season looked different before substantial injury changed the way this season looked. So I know that you don't want to hear that excuse when you are North Carolina and you have Hubert Davis, but you also lost your best player to injury, and that definitely changed things. That being said, the decision is now made. So the question is, who do they go after? And this feels like one of those moments where big game hunting is the only type of hunting North Carolina is going to do, right? Like when you are North Carolina, you're probably not out there with the search firm looking for some guy that nobody's ever heard of. Your big game hunting from the outset. So who stands out to you, Caroline?
Well, of course, before I get into my fun pick, of course, North Carolina is going to pick up the phone and they're going to call Nate Oates. They're going to call Todd Golden. They're going to call some of these hot coaches on the market, right? North Carolina has to do their due diligence. They don't have to say yes, but they're going to pick up the phone and they're going to call and they're going to kick the tires on some of these hot coaches on the market. But my kind of deep cut name would be Brad Stevens, the GM for the Boston Celtics. Now, bear with me here, okay? Brad Stevens got Butler to 2 Final Fours. And we're talking about when Butler was in the Horizon League. Butler's in the Big East now, a far more competitive basketball conference. But he got Butler to the 2 Final Fours when they were in the Horizon League. And then he takes over as the coach in Boston, has a ton of success there. He takes over in the front office as a GM in Boston. He wins front office person of the year in the NBA a couple of years ago and wins a Larry O'Brien. So he has experience at the college level. He knows what it takes to win at the college level, but he also has experience in roster construction. I was talking to the Ohio State women's basketball coach last week, and he said, yeah, they're going to call me Ohio State women's basketball coach, but what I really am is Ohio State women's basketball general manager. Because he said that's what all coaches are. Men's basketball, women's basketball, football, baseball, you name it. All we are just GMs. Because I can coach my players up. I know I can do that, but it's up to me to construct a roster that can win championships and can meet and exceed program expectations. Well, that's what Brad Stevens has been doing. He is a general manager. He can identify talent. He can construct a roster. He can put a coaching staff together and identify coaching talent to put that roster talent in position to succeed. So, look, Brad Stevens might be totally comfy and cozy, making the money that he is, being in Boston, being at the NBA level. But I think with what he's going to be asked to do at North Carolina, construct a high-level, high-dollar roster, well, he's already been doing that.
Well, and I love that call by you, especially considering the success he's had. And I think we need to understand now that the college game is more like the NBA than ever, right? So this argument of like, oh, college coaching versus NBA coaching, I mean, you're talking about free agency. You're talking about roster construction. Like you're talking about managing salary cap. These all feel like NBA sort of problems in a college basketball world. So I'll add you another college basketball sort of interesting name to me that keeps getting floated around that makes sense, and that's Billy Donovan. Obviously, the Bulls not having the season they want. Donovan just did a contract extension, about a year ago? But according to reports, he's making about $6 million annually. I mean, that's pretty easy for North Carolina to touch. So then the question is, does Billy Donovan want to go back into the college game? And if he goes back into the college game at North Carolina, it just feels like this is the right timing if you're looking at the Bulls and you're thinking, man, we're up against it and we're not really progressing the way we want to progress, and maybe it's just time for a change, this becomes an easy time for everybody to sort of bounce around. And then this is still a big name hire for North Carolina. They're bringing back Billy Donovan. That one feels like it makes a lot of sense to me. So Billy Donovan, given what he's accomplished in the college game, and also the fact that I don't think it's necessarily going swimmingly, easily for Chicago, makes a lot of sense. But TJ Otzelberger is another name that I'll throw out there. Iowa State's head coach. Obviously, Iowa State right now sitting in a verge, like they're trying to go out and win a national championship. But Otzelberger is absolutely a name that I think college people adore, right? So it's still a big move up to him to go to North Carolina from Iowa State. It feels like the right move. Feels like the right platform launch. They would get one of the hottest coaches in college basketball and somebody that has a real shot at a natty. The only question is, does TJ want to leave where he is? I mean, this is going to be the college football concept that we just went through a couple of months ago. How many big names do we see decide they want to stay at schools that typically a few years ago couldn't have kept their coach, but now money talks. So it'll be interesting to see, can Iowa State back up the Brinks truck and make TJ feel like, hey, coach, you don't need to go anywhere. You have a shot at a natty here. You have great resources here. You have good money here. Who cares about North Carolina? It'll be interesting to see if the college football mentality impacts college basketball hiring.
Yeah, and I love, before I get into that, I do want to touch on your two candidates. Love those. I think TJ Otzelberger will be a hot name on the market for any of these big time programs that are or could be looking for a new head coach. I think they agree, though. It's probably time for North Carolina to search outside of the Brotherhood. The last time they hired a coach, or at least looked for a coach outside of this North Carolina bubble, was 1960. Think about that. 1960, Dean Smith was hired at North Carolina in 1961. So since then, it has been North Carolina DNA passed on from Dean Smith to Bill Guthridge to Matt Doherty to Roy Williams and finally to Hubert Davis. That, look, I know that Hubert Davis was handpicked, cherry-picked by Roy Williams, a guy that we all view in very, very high regard. He's a legend at North Carolina. He picked Hubert Davis. It's clearly not going very well, especially when you look just down the street when Coach K's hand-picked successors having a lot of success fresh off of a Final Four and just may find themselves in another one. I think I do love, whenever you can find a person that has ties to a certain program or to a certain university, right? It means something. It means a little bit more to them, whether they went to that school or they were an assistant under the previous head coach or whatever it is. They get it. They understand it. The fan base has familiarity with them. But at a certain point, it's just time to cut the umbilical cord. And I think that there are a lot of programs that have kind of gone through that. I think the Lady Vols went through that as well. Pat Summitt will go down as forever and always one of the greatest women's basketball coaches of all time and someone who revolutionized the game. So it was obvious for Tennessee to hire Holly Warlick, a Pat Summitt assistant. Didn't go very well. Okay, so we'll go back into the kitty and we'll hire Kelly Harper, who played under Pat Summitt. Yeah, didn't go very well either. At some point, they had to say, we have to stop continuing along this same cycle. And as hard as it might be, we have to go out and we have to find someone new. Now, that was just 2 coaching hires for the Lady Vols. This has been a coaching hiring history and trend over the last 60 years. So it might feel a little uncomfortable, but I think it's the right move for North Carolina. But I do think you bring up a good point. And I brought up Nate Oates. I brought up Todd Golden. I think Dusty May is going to be another very hot name on the market. Do those guys really want to leave where they are? 10 years ago, leaving Alabama to go to North Carolina, no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer. Because we were talking about Alabama, albeit, look, it's a great athletics department. Don't get it twisted. But we're talking about North Carolina. We're talking about Carolina Blue. We're talking about the team that has been to more Final Fours than any other team in the country in program history. We're talking about North Carolina. You don't pass that job up really for anything. But times have changed. This is a different college sports world. This is a different era. in college sports, that Nate Oates is getting financial support at Alabama. Todd Golden just won a national championship at Florida. Dusty May has a pretty good thing going at Michigan, and it's still North Carolina. And the reputation and the brand still means something, because that's an easy thing to sell to recruits, no doubt. But I do think the gap between what matters for head coaches and for recruits, it's changed. It's shrunk. No longer is it just about repping the Carolina blue. It's how much can you pay me? What's the infrastructure like in the athletic department? And there are a lot more teams that can be much more competitive in the financial department, even if they can't be competitive in the brand department, because nobody's touching that brand. This will be a fascinating coaching hire to watch. Of course, we'll keep you updated with all things North Carolina and all things coaching hirings across college basketball. But coming up next, let's get some laughs in here. Mark Normand will join us on the other side.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure on myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Mike Washington, speed score wonder, good size, just downhill in a hurry, but just can never quite make that safety miss unless he just runs past him.
He blew up because of the combine, and people were like, wow, who is this? And he has everything that, sleeper running backs people fall in love with, the size, the speed. There's usually a handful of guys like this. In this year's class, there's actually not a ton of guys like this that maybe boosted his stock around or so.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flagg, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level, shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time All-Star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
Mark Normand's highly anticipated new 1 hour special, None Too Pleased, is out now on Netflix. And in the special, Mark turns married life, fatherhood, and more into rapid fire punchlines where nothing is off limits. And he joins us now, the superstar comedian here on Yahoo Sports Daily. So we'll get into the special in just a bit. But New Orleans native, I went to LSU, spent several years in Louisiana, greatest place on earth. I've heard you're a Saints fan, and you said a casual Saints fan. At this point, Mark, I feel like we all, just for our well-beings, have to be casual Saints fans. What's the temperature check on where we are in our football fandom right now? How are we feeling? How are we doing? How are our mentals?
Well, I'll always root for him. I mean, I live in New York now, so I can't go with the Jets. I mean, what am I, a terrorist? But definitely Saints all day, all the way. So I'll stick with them till I die. And we won a Super Bowl in 2009, and we've been hanging on to that ever since, like a fat guy who peaked in high school.
Yeah, a lot of people in Louisiana are holding on to 2000 and 2019. Their knuckles are white holding on to those years of the peak of football fandoms. But your Netflix special, None Too Pleased, offers a no-holds-barred look into married life and fatherhood. So how different is your comedy now as a parent and as a husband versus maybe when you were just starting out in your single years?
Well, for the record, I did hold some bards back. But, I still pushed it a little bit, but I got a kid now. I'm married
here
now,
if you can hear me.
And I got to tell you, it's a cliche, but it's a wealth of material. You get so much from that little nugget. I mean, he's not mine, but cute little black kid. But we're having a good time, and I'm trying not to be the dad comic, you know? I don't want to be the corny guy, so I try to still be the dad comic with a little edge, hopefully.
So as you go around the country, you're on your national stand-up tour, Mumbo Jumbo. How often do you feel like you can loop sports into your material, if at all?
Ooh, well, I guess I have a whole chunk about how about UFC fighters. That's pretty fun. I compared trying to get laid to trying to get drafted. So I got a couple. Sports analogies are great with comedy. So yeah, I try to squeeze a few in, but I never go too specific because sports are always changing. You don't want to have a Steph Curry joke, and then he gets bumped off the team. So I'll just casually make fun of the WNBA and move on.
All right, so let's stick with your material then. Like when you talk about that, how often are you refreshing things? Like once you start a tour, are you sort of locked in for that tour on where your material's going to go?
Mic, but it looks like he's asking a really lovely question. I'm sure it was the best question that he asked all day.
He's dead weight. We don't need him.
We'll see. I think we have him.
Yeah,
look at there. Mark, thanks for hanging out, man. Like you just mentioned, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where things change. When you start a tour, is your set sort of like, I was a musician for years, right? We would spend the first month getting our set right, and the whole year we toured on that set. For you as a stand-up comic, are you sort of changing things up night in and night out, or once you get a set, is it sort of what you rock with for that year?
No, you're always tweaking. A joke can get cut any minute. It's like a sports team. You know, this guy's he's slowing us down. We're gonna get rid of him and get a new guy in. So you're always swapping jokes in and out, just trying to keep the top shelf stuff. But yeah, it's always changing. It's like a what do you call it? Evolution. Or
I have to think
transitioning. Sorry.
Yeah, I have to think that as a comedian, no, I apologize for stepping on your toes. As a comedian, I feel like getting a Netflix special is the ultimate goal, right? That we like, you made it. You have a Netflix special. You're doing it. You're doing the thing. When you found out that you were getting your own special on Netflix, what was your reaction?
Hey, it was very exciting. It's a tough nut to crack because they know they got you by the balls. They know how bad we need that special, and you cannot beat the eyeballs. You put it on YouTube, a lot of people see it, but Netflix has that prestige behind it, and it's a runaway freight train. It's global. So, hey, if you're on Twitter, pull up my joke about it was like 2 jokes back about the basketball player, the fat white guy with the glasses. I'm loving this guy. What's his name?
Which one? Cream?
Yes. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. What else they got? Steph Blurry, Shaquille Oatmeal,
Milk Chamberlain.
And I threw in Magic the Gathering Johnson.
No, that's.
But the
that's
jokes
electric.
on this guy, but they just go for days.
You with your Netflix special, when you found out you were going to get it, it's the biggest opportunity for you to show the world what you do. How'd you decide where you wanted to film the special?
Well, I shot it in Boulder, Colorado, and I'd never been there before, so it's kind of a gamble, kind of a risk. But we sold out 3 theaters there, so I said, "Hey, that's 3 shots at the special, so let's go to Boulder."
And did you end up? Was that the right call? Like, did you love the crowds? Did that work for you?
They were killer. I was worried they were going to be a little crunchy, a little queefy, but they were great, and I made the right choice. It was a gamble, but it paid off, so I got lucky. Thank you, Boulder. Colorado's a great comedy state.
Shout out to Boulder. I'm curious too. You know, you mentioned social media and putting things up on YouTube and now Netflix specials. For comedians, how has promoting your content changed over time?
Oh, geez. Oh, man, these are like some real HR questions here. Well, I guess how's it changed over time promoting? I got more followers now. I mean, when I started, you just wanted to get on TV. I'm old. I can't even get it up anymore. But when I started, you just want to get on TV. So if it got on TV, hey, great. It aired when it aired, and that was it. And now it's on Netflix. So you want to just keep people seeing it. You get on Twitter, you get on Instagram, you get on TikTok, you get on podcasts, and you got to go to Rogan, Shannon Sharp, Bobby Lee. You just keep Theo Vaughn. You got to just keep getting it out there. So it's a constant uphill battle these days. But back then, you go on Good Morning America. It came on cable, and you moved on with your life.
All right, so we're going to play a game with you. All right, Mark, this is a game we play a lot on this show. Bart Scott famously said, "Can't wait," years ago on ESPN, and we clip it. So this is what we do. We do a game called a Bart or a Fart, right? It's can't wait. So if something's really exciting, it's a Bart, and then all of a sudden Bart screams, "Can't wait" for us.
Can't
we hear a
wait.
sound effect. And if it's the opposite of a Bart, if it's terrible, it's a fart, in which case we play this very grown-up sound effect. So we're going to ask you some questions, and we're going to figure out Bart or Fart. All right, so Saints legend Drew Brees texts you and offers you front row tickets Canton, Ohio Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony later this summer. It means you get to go to the Hall of Fame ceremony, but you got to hang out in Canton. Is that a Bart or a Fart for you?
I mean, can I hang out with Drew?
Yeah, you get to hang out with Drew.
That's a Bart. I'm in.
Can't
I
wait.
want to meet the guy. He's a legend in my town. He's like William Wallace. He's 7 feet tall if he's a foot.
He also just seems like the nicest, most genuine, cutie patootie little person ever. But we'll
Agreed.
continue
And
the
he's
barter
balding,
farts.
which I
And
like.
love that for him. Truly, bald men need love too.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as much of a legend in your hometown, but Zion. Let's say Zion Williamson personally calls you up. He offers you courtside seats to watch him play at a Pelicans game, which watching Zion play at a Pelicans game is, few and far between these days. Bart or Fart?
Oh, well. I mean, he's a fat guy. He loves to put down that gumbo. He won't get in the gym. He's a real chunky son of a bee. But I'd still go Bart because he's huge. He's a hell of a player. So I'd still want to go.
All right, how about a little LSU love then? Lane Kiffin, let's say Lane DMs you and says, "Hey, I need to focus on coaching. You got to take over my Twitter for me for the rest of the season." You managing Twitter for Lane Kiffin, Bart or a Fart?
I mean, I would take it, but they would fire me in 8 seconds when I made some kind of racial joke. So I would take it and then get fired.
Just
That
don't
wouldn't
get us
last long.
fired. Just don't get us fired. That's all.
Oh no. What about Livy Dunn? Let's do one with her.
Oh, how about Jameis? Jameis, all right, let's say this, Bart or Fart. Jameis offers to open for you on your tour to warm up the crowd. Would you let Jameis, Bart or Fart, on Jameis coming out and doing 5 minutes to open for you?
Big fart. Can't have it. I mean, no offense, but athletes are notoriously unfunny. There's a couple. Charles Barkley's hilarious and a few others, but Peyton Manning's got a few, but sorry, I can't have them. Fart.
If Fart, maybe because he might not be funny, or also because he sets the bar so high that no matter what you do, you're just gonna kind of fall short of whatever Jameis can offer. It's a lose-lose situation there. So I'll deep dive
Agreed.
into
And
my LSU fandom here. Your next
He's a
Netflix
sexy man.
special.
That would make me look worse. Sorry. There's a delay. I hate the
It
delay.
happens. I know. Technology can't live with it, can't live without. But your next Netflix special, you had an offer to tape it at Tiger Stadium. It's packed, 102,300 people. Bart or Fart?
Go Tigers.
Well, I got to go Fart because I can't fill that up. I'd have about 18 people there. It would be the worst show ever. And somebody would take a photo of it and it would haunt me for the rest of my life. So no, I can't do that. And it's open air. You got to have a closed roof for comedy. I did enough COVID shows in the back of a pickup truck.
What's the biggest room you played?
Well, I've opened for famous people at like the Madison Square Garden or State Farm Arena. I've done some big the Forum in LA. So I had some good openings, but I'm still just a meek theater comic.
All right, so let's get one more in here. All right, this goes straight to the Saints fandom. Bart or Farting, Tyler Shuck's second season in the NFL. You excited for this? Tyler Shuck, quarterback, QB1 for the Saints going into the season. You got the good feels?
I got a good feel. I mean, I'm loving this. I sound like a Klan member, but there's like a row of honkies coming in now, and I feel like whites are having a moment in sports. I mean, NBA is full of big crackers, and football too. So, hey, I'm getting behind the this whitey.
This is look, got to check out the We Might Be Drunk podcast. We're not drunk this morning, but Mark also hosts the We Might Be Drunk podcast. Tickets for his stand-up tour, Mumbo Jumbo, can be found at marknormancomedy.com, and None Too Pleased is out right now on Netflix. Mark, really appreciate your time, man. Thanks for making us laugh. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning.
Thanks for having me. You guys are the best comedy.
Check out marknormancomedy.com. Coming up, the WNBA is about to get rolling. What's it mean for Caitlin and the MVP? We'll tell you next.
What are some things about the Detroit Pistons that we on the outside might not know?
The culture, when I walked into this, the culture for me was pretty impressive. The way the players kind of come to bat for each other. And, Isaiah Stewart is not a guy off the court that is like an angry human being. In that Charlotte game, it was all he was saying in the locker room was like, I'm going to have you guys back. That's what I do. For me, it's impressive to see just how together everyone is and, the culture that they've continued to build.
I have Sadiq at the top like you. That's not the surprise. Sam Roush from Stanford, who had the big combine, unlike a lot of college tight ends that are productive, he actually, in my opinion, is playing the position like a pro right now. I love how he rumbles after the catch. I like Sam Roush quite a bit, Nate, because I just love that I could put him on the line of scrimmage, and I think he's tough as hell.
I do want to ask you about your teammate Jalen Coker. Can you kind of tell the people about Jalen, the person, the player, everything in between?
The people love him, the teammates love him, the coaches love him. And you see, as the year went on, how much faith, how much trust, how much belief that Bryce has in him, that the coaching staff has in him. I mean, he can do it all. He has good routes, very physical. He plays inside, outside. I mean, he does pretty much everything, man. And the Panthers definitely got a gem.
We've talked a lot, in fairness, about guys like Joe Burrow that are frustrated with losing. You know that experience. What advice would you give somebody that is so premier as a talent, but is with a franchise that can't seem to find a way to maximize it?
There's no guarantee for any of us, right, at the start of the season, you're going to end up with a championship. If you're an elite athlete, you embrace that challenge, such a special, unique thing, right? Because the best players in the league don't necessarily always get there, but generally the best teams do.
These are your early odds on WNBA MVP. And you see right there, Caitlin Clark at plus 260 and Asia Wilson also at plus 260 at BetMGM. And this shows you that we have co-favorites, which is a little surprising, or is it? That's what we're going to figure out as we are only a few weeks away from the season starting. In Caroline, I just keep thinking about name recognition, public money versus actual MVP odds, right? Because Caitlin, certainly everybody's on Caitlin Clark. There's no doubt she's the biggest star in the W. But do you agree that she should be the shortest odds, tied for the shortest odds to be the MVP?
I don't. And look, everybody take a chill pill, okay? Just because I don't think Caitlin Clark should have the best odds to be MVP doesn't mean that I hate Caitlin Clark, okay? Because I don't. I love Caitlin. Caitlin is the biggest star in the league. Caitlin is a massive reason why the WNBA just cashed in on that massive CBA. She commands eyeballs, which means she's brought so many eyeballs and so much popularity to this sport. But also, let's not forget, Caitlin only has one full season of the WNBA under her belt. She was hurt for a majority of last season. Kelsey Mitchell was the most important player on that team last year. And I know if Caitlin was healthy, would things have been different? Of course. Yeah, I think that's very fair to say. But things weren't different, and that is how it was. And Kelsey Mitchell, I think very much so, had a strong case to be MVP this past season. Now, Asia Wilson got one MVP and deserved MVP, but Kelsey Mitchell was a finalist and for very good reason. So if Caitlin wasn't even the most impactful or important player on her team last year, how can I say that she should have the best odds to win MVP? I think if we want to talk about best odds for MVP, Asia Wilson should be alone at the top because no player was more important to one team than Asia Wilson was to the Vegas Aces last year, and they won a championship in large part because of her. Now, I understand how betting markets work. I understand that they're trying to play into the public, and a lot of public will put money on Caitlin Clark. I understand that. It's not just about who's deserving to have the best odds to an MVP. There's business to this. There's skyscrapers in the desert for a reason. But just based off of the information that we have now, look, can Caitlin Clark be an MVP? 100%. We've seen that with USA Basketball this past couple of months. Would I be surprised if Caitlin won MVP? No, because that's the kind of player that she is. But based on the information that we have now and what we know now, I don't think that she should be co-MVP favorites with A'ja Wilson.
Yeah, this is where it's difficult because there's no doubt that the most important brand in all of women's college basketball, and one of the most important brands in all of sports, is Caitlin Clark. There's no doubt that Caitlin is a transcendent, once-in-a-generation talent. All of these things are true. The best player in the WNBA right now is A'ja Wilson. And like, don't get it twisted. A'ja hasn't backed her way into MVP. She's the MVP consistently because she is the most dominant player in the league. And like, this is where it gets really difficult because, again, this doesn't mean I'm anti-Caitlin Clark. I understand how great Caitlin is. I understand how important Caitlin is. I understand why Caitlin is truly transcendent to everything. But I also don't remember the last time a player with the level of greatness of A'ja Wilson's has been this sort of slept on. Like, there's no doubt. There's a reason why within minutes of the announcement of the collective bargaining agreement being finished, we got reports from Vegas that was like, hey, the Aces are going to make A'ja Wilson the max player right away. Mark Davis knows what he has with this team. A 4-time WNBA MVP, 3-time WNBA champion. If we're making the Mount Rushmore conversation of the greatest women's basketball players of all time, there's a very serious debate that A'ja Wilson belongs on that Mount Rushmore. And on top of that, it's not like she's declining. We're not looking at A'ja used to be great. Now she's just hanging on for dear life. She's still the most dominant player in the league. So I get it. Vegas is making a ton of money on public money that wants to come in and bet on Caitlin Clark because we all love Caitlin Clark. This show loves Caitlin Clark. We love Caitlin Clark. A'ja Wilson's the best player in the WNBA. So if I'm putting money right now on who's going to be the MVP, it's not even close. I'm much more comfortable betting A'ja because A, she is dominant. B, proof of concept, she's won it over and over and over again. C, there's no proof at all that her game is declining at all. And D, to your point, we still got to see Caitlin come in, be healthy for a full season. We got to see exactly what it looks like. We got to see her. She would have to do all of the Caitlin things all the right ways. And I think A'ja would have to have a small drop-off for Caitlin to win it this year. I don't see those things happening. So love and respect to Caitlin Clark. I think A'ja Wilson right now in the W is actually a better basketball player.
Yeah, and I think that's fine to say. It's not illegal to say that. It's fine to acknowledge that because even when Caitlin was on the floor for some of her last games last season, she didn't look right. She didn't look 100%. An injury is probably 100% of the reason for that, but that is what we saw from her last, at least wearing a Fever uniform. I think another thing that's important to point out here as well is we don't have a full, vision of what this season is going to look like or what these teams are going to look like. Almost every single player in the W that's not on a rookie contract is a free agent. A'ja Wilson's a free agent, but she's going back to Vegas. We know that. Breanna Stewart is a free agent. She's already come out and said she's going back to the Liberty. As long as the Liberty will have her, she will be there. She's from New York. So at least, even though there are free agents, we know where they're going to go. But there are a lot of free agents out there that might truly want to find a new home, that might want to truly have a free agency tour. I mentioned Kelsey Mitchell. She's a free agent as well. I don't know if she's going back to Indiana. Look at any of these other stars across the league. I don't know where they're going to be playing next year. We don't know that for certain. So that could make a difference in who is MVP because we view MVP as usually the best player on the best team, or at least MVP contenders are players on teams that are in contention, that are teams that are at the top of the standings. So there might be rosters that look wildly different, either significantly stronger or significantly weaker once free agency comes into play. We also have an expansion draft for 2 teams. We don't know now because they just negotiated it in the CBA. We don't know how many players each team is going to be able to protect. So these rosters that we knew from last season will look wildly different could be at least next season. So I think keep that context in mind when we think about, MVP, even though I think it's very fair to say Nafisa Collier will be one of the best players in the league next year. Caitlin Clark will be one of the best players in the league next year. Asia Wilson will be one of the best players in the league next year. Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, the list goes on and on and on. There you go, right there. Alyssa Thomas, of course. But the pieces around them, their teammates, their roster, their core may look different. That could hurt their team, which would also hurt their odds at potentially winning an MVP.
No, and that's all the more reason why I continue to say right now, today, without any knowledge, if I had to place a bet somewhere, it's going to be on Asia, because if I have to place a bet on any team that's not going to be afraid to spend whatever it takes and put together whatever it takes and recruit however it takes, it's Vegas. I mean, Mark Davis, since he bought this team, has made it his investment in women's basketball, the WNBA, and the Las Vegas Aces apparent. So if you're a player right now and you can go to a place that has the best or one of the best training facilities, that has the best coach in the WNBA, the most respected coach in the WNBA, the highest paid coach in the WNBA, and Becky Hammond. You also have a 4-time MVP in Asia Wilson. You know that they're going to be a championship contender because they are basically every single year. I mean, if I'm talking about what team I believe today, without knowing anything about roster construction, I would have to trust to put together the right roster around someone to make an MVP type year. It's going to be Vegas, because Vegas has done it over and over and over again. Now, you're right. I think the expansion portion of this gets really interesting because depth is going to be tested in the W this year. When you add 2 teams, it's inevitable, especially because those teams are going to try and be as competitive as possible out of the gate, right? It's going to be inevitable that you're going to see some attrition in depth across the league, which means you're going to see less dominance. But Vegas always seems to find a way, whether it's from a big 3 or whether it's even in a year like last year when, frankly, they made trades that were questioned and everybody wondered, and they lose in the regular season. And then all of a sudden they go on a run. I just think the DNA around the Vegas Aces is different, and the DNA around Asia Wilson is different. And all of that to say, Caitlin, Indiana certainly shocked everybody with how successful they were. And Caitlin is she's Caitlin. So I'm genuinely interested, Caroline, to see if players flock to want to play around Caitlin because she's Caitlin. Like, it's good for your brand. You're going to play winning basketball. You're going to be around excitement. You're going to have huge crowds everywhere you play. Like, I think there is a huge draw to what Indiana is going to be able to build simply because players want to play with Caitlin Clark.
And Indiana absolutely overachieved last year. I mean, we went into the season saying it was the Fever were pushing all of their chips into the middle to capitalize on a championship. And then the injury bug bit the Fever probably worse than either team in the W. And so, of course, that kind of derails expectations a bit. And it starts with Caitlin Clark. But I think what was so impressive was the way that Indiana was able to keep things on the tracks, and they were just narrowly missing out on an opportunity to get to the WNBA finals. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell went down in those last couple of games in the semifinals, and then, the Fever ultimately fell short, but they were close. And so I think that is another reason why Indiana would be attractive. It's the crowds that you're going to play in front of. It's the TV opportunities that you're going to get. It's playing with Caitlin Clark. It's playing with Aaliyah Boston. And also, I don't know, and Kelsey Mitchell as well. If Kelsey Mitchell comes back in free agency, I mean, that is a stacked team as long as everybody stays healthy. So, yeah, I think Indiana is absolutely a very attractive place to go in free agency, knowing that you're going to be playing in front of a packed house on any given night and knowing the healthy environment that locker room really was last season.
Yeah, it's going to be wild to see. The best part about all of this is now that we've gotten through the CBA, we're going to get to actual games, and the roster movement over the next couple of weeks will create a level of excitement, I think, coming into this season. It'll create a level of energy coming into this season. And certainly, as we both make clear, we'll make clear again, this is not any anti-statement on Caitlin. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Caitlin turn around and have just an absolute dominant season. I just refuse to count out somebody that we've seen do it over and over and over. Like, 2 things can be true. Caitlin can be great, and so can Asia. All right, plenty to break down on the WNBA, but we got to get back to the NCAA tournament. We're going to get it from Ryan Hammer coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on what we've seen so far in this tournament.
Criticism like that from a coach in the moment, how are you feeling when that's happening and the film's on screen?
Yeah, man, I think it's you listen more to the message and not the tone of the message. I mean, I think it's actually better to get called out than to not, because it shows not only like you're not worried about getting your feelings hurt. Like, they're not worried about hurting my feelings. And that's something I love about our coach. Like, he's not really worried about hurting your feelings. He's going to tell you, shoot it to you straight. And for me, like, I've always thrived under coaches that do that.
We are ranking the biggest robberies in MLS histories, the players who looked at their team owners and said, thanks for the cash, and gave absolutely nothing in return. If your team is on this list, we are very, very sorry. Danielson, FC Dallas. His contract was for $879,000.
If you're watching this, look at his photo. He don't even look interested to be there in the photo.
With 10 appearances, he effectively got nearly $100,000 per game.
I'm sitting there watching Unreal, and they're talking about you in WWE at the Royal Rumble, just being thrown into the ring. You ever getting back in the ring for one of those opportunities again after that injury?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we got WrestleMania coming up, so you maybe see me in there, you maybe not. I'm just not trying to get beat up, but we'll see. We'll see. Like, I got beat up too much times. My body can't take that anymore.
Little teaser from the one and only Nate Diaz. Unfinished business. And then he expanded on that on Twitter and said, I'll see you soon. I'm coming.
What about Dustin? Dustin versus Nate. Big fight. That could be a co-main or a main for a big fight card.
One that we always wanted to see.
One that Dustin has said, that'll get me out of retirement. The UFC could use him more than ever. They need stars now.
I didn't do well in math in school, but I did pretty well when we talked to Ryan Hammer before, learning about the trapezoid of excellence. 4 out of the 5 original pre-tourney Zoid teams remain. Illinois joins 7 others so close. Ryan Hammer's got it figured out. Math figures out we didn't think we needed it, and it turns out we actually do. So, Ryan, now that we've gotten through this so far, how are we feeling about the trapezoid of excellence? You talked us into it, and now look, it's wildly successful.
I feel good, obviously, and it's not like this end all be all. First of all, because it's the best teams in the country, right? And they're gonna succeed most of years anyway. But there are teams, obviously, like Florida was outside coming in, and they ended up losing a little earlier than we expected because of the pace disparity that we kind of talked about. That could be vulnerable for them, but we feel good about it right now, and it'll be a fun weekend. I'm sure we'll feel a lot different, either really good or maybe not so good in a week from today.
And that's kind of the tournament in a nutshell, right? We're feeling good, then we're feeling not so good. We get humbled very quickly by March Madness. So with that in mind, who was your biggest disappointment in the first weekend of the tournament?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, Wisconsin's the only big time power team that lost early, especially out of the Big Ten teams. They're the one that didn't succeed, but it's hard to say because High Point is obviously a great mid-major team, and they obviously have the great chops. I'd say Kansas is a disappointing one also. They were a possession away from beating St. John's, to be fair, and or going to overtime to maybe win that game and still be playing. But the way that Kansas looked in their couple of games, obviously Cal Baptist, first half they looked great, but second half they let them come back in the game, and then they kind of just looked relatively dead in the water for a lot of the St. John's game. And now it might be leading into a massive coaching change for them, so who knows?
All right, Ryan, how nervous were you during the Siena-Duke game where we were all sitting there saying our brackets are absolutely up a creek?
Oh, I would gladly throw my bracket in the trash to see Siena beat Duke. I would take that. That's what I don't think people understand is that it's always chaos before your bracket. Because your bracket's going to get busted at some point if you're 99% of people. So to see a 1 seed go down in the first round, I would pay money to have that happen.
You and me both. I think we need it. I'm hearing all of this conversation about Cinderellas are dead. I'm like, no, I refuse to accept that. I refuse to live in a world where Cinderellas are dead in March Madness. Another team that the trapezoid of excellence was high on was Gonzaga. They obviously fall to Texas. In your opinion, was that more of a disappointment for Gonzaga, or was that more of a positive surprise for Texas?
It's a little of both. I think that Gonzaga, not fully healthy, obviously, but they just did not look to the standard that you wanted them to be. And to be fair, coming in, Gonzaga efficiency metrics were skewed a little bit higher than maybe they should have been. But going into it, we saw 5 teams inside of there and was like, well, Gonzaga is not like the rest. They're not going to be able to win a national championship like the other 4 that are in there. So we kind of knew that from the start, but definitely disappointing for them for sure.
All right, let's turn the page into the Sweet 16. The first game Thursday night, Longhorns against Purdue. Can Texas pull off another big old upset?
They absolutely can. Vukatitis has been great down low, and if they can play through size relatively well and limit what they're going to get, Purdue's going to get through TKR and Oscar Clough, I think that's huge for them. I also think at the same time, Texas's path, beating BYU and Gonzaga, sounds good on paper. They both did not play well at all, and it was almost them beating themselves. Credit to Texas from the playing game. They've been great, and it's awesome that they're in the Sweet 16, and they absolutely can win this game. But I like Purdue in this one.
I do want to stay in that region and look at that Arizona Arkansas matchup. I think Darius Acuff might be one of my favorite players in the country. What does he and the rest of this Arkansas team need to do in order to continue to bust everyone's brackets and take down Arizona on the way
Yeah,
to an Elite Eight?
I feel like he's everybody's favorite player. He's absolutely electric. He's so
The
dang good.
best.
He's so dang good. But you know what you're gonna get from the guards for Arkansas, right? Like you know that Darius Acuff probably gonna get something good from Malik Thomas and even Billy Richmond. Like you're gonna get what you need for the most part, and if you don't, then you're gonna lose. It's more in the front court is where they win this game, or maybe inevitably lose this game, where Arizona's got one of the biggest, baddest, strongest teams in front courts in the entire country, and Arkansas has one that doesn't really protect the rim consistently and relatively well. So it's going to be a big night for Trevor Brazile and Malik Ewan this week. And that's what I'm watching the most because if they struggle versus the Arizona Bigs, it's going to be a long night for them. But if they come out to play, they come out early and they play off the vibes that we've seen them play, then Arkansas can pull this off.
All right. So where are you on Houston now that we've lost the 1 seed in that? Does Houston suddenly pop out to you as a favorite?
Yeah, Houston to me was my pick to come out. They were the favorite in my opinion to come out anyway. I like their path better than Florida's, and I think that they're just better suited to succeed in the tournament, like we saw last year from Houston getting there, obviously. But yeah, I mean they're the favorite now. They're playing in Houston, Texas for the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight, and they're playing not one but two Big Ten teams. If they would win, it's three Big Ten teams versus them, is what I'm trying to say. So if they get out, it's them versus the entire conference of the Big Ten. The Houston Illinois game, call it what it is. Nebraska, Iowa is awesome that they're playing each other and they can absolutely, one of them can get to a Final Four because one of them is going to be playing in the Elite Eight. But they're both playing with house money. They're excited to be there right now. And if you're Illinois or Houston, you have to be licking your chops knowing that if you win this game, you're likely going to be in the Final Four.
Combine your eyes and your analytics for me with the Iowa upset over Florida. Is that something that we should have seen coming? Can it mean something for Iowa moving forward?
I mean, it just means that Ben McCollum is the truth himself. He's such an amazing basketball coach, and their system works when they play so slow, but they're playing efficiently on offense. They control the pace of the game, and it was so hard for Florida to claw their way back in, and they did just in time for the last minute or two of the game to where it came down to a last possession or two. But Iowa, credit to Iowa for how they play. They're a very analytically driven team also, so it makes a lot of sense. And the eye test, they look good. The system is so good. They have experience, chemistry, kind of everything they need. So it's great for Iowa, and it's definitely the real thing. So.
Great for Iowa. I mean, great for Nebraska, a team that had never won a tournament game in its entire history. Now here they are in the Sweet 16. I love these stories for these programs, and I think all of us here on the show as absolute sickos love this matchup. But as a 9-4 Iowa-Nebraska matchup in the Sweet 16, is that good for college basketball?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's great. It's great for the Big Ten. First of all, Big Ten's going absolutely crazy this tournament, but it's great to know that one seeds will still go down, and you kind of have teams like Iowa who weren't a bubble team, but like getting a 9 seed, they were relatively close to the cut line and the bat behind them. So it's great to know that these things can still happen, and you can have these stories. Iowa hasn't been to a Final Four since 1980. Nebraska, like you said, has obviously never been there. They never won a tournament game before this year. So the stories are incredible. I think it's great, and I think there's potential for the Midwest part of the country to go absolutely crazy if those teams can get to a Final Four. You obviously have Illinois that's going to play against them if they beat Houston, and Iowa State and Michigan on the other side. So the Midwest right now, the region is going crazy.
All right, so let's get to the Kardashian bracket because it has the most drama and the most famous people. That's the East. So Pitino versus Duke. What needs to go right in your mind for St. John's to take down the Blue Devils?
It's in the front court, in my opinion. Dylan Mitchell and Zuby and Bryce have kind of had their way for most teams for St. John's, where if Patton Gong was good to go, which there's no reason he won't be, that's going to be a different story against Duke. They have one of the best front courts in the country, especially defensively. So I fear that could make St. John's struggle from the jump. But if they're ready to play and they're kind of firing on all cylinders and rebounding well and getting those second chances like they need to, then that's kind of what the key is for them.
I want to look at that Tennessee Iowa State matchup. Obviously, we saw Joshua Jefferson go down with an ankle injury last week. He's hopeful to return for the Sweet 16, at least from what I've seen. We haven't heard anything definitively. How important is he for Iowa State to get past Tennessee and get to an Elite Eight?
He's super important for Tennessee, and then if they were to play Michigan or even Alabama, obviously, but you're playing against realistically Tennessee and then Michigan if you win, two teams that are physical, great front court. So you need them against Tennessee. They add a layer of physicality that Kentucky definitely does not, that they just played, and then a couple of teams that they haven't played in a little while. So, and on top of that, the offense looked good versus Kentucky, but it looked bad in the first half. Their flow was not there, and they kind of need that extra layer of versatility on both ends of the floor if they're going to take down Tennessee and Michigan or Alabama to get to a Final Four like they want to.
Stick on Tennessee for a second. I am a cynic about this Tennessee team because I haven't seen Rick Barnes get to a Final Four since I was in kindergarten. He's had the teams, he's had the talent, but hasn't been able to get past an Elite Eight, at least since he's been at Tennessee. Is this year different?
I don't think it is. I don't think they're going to get there because I do think Michigan's going to beat Bama, and then they'd have to beat Michigan also. So being able to beat Iowa State and Michigan within 3 days of each other is something that I just don't believe they can. I'm the same way as you a little bit because Tennessee has never made a Final Four. Dalton Connect, Chaz Lanier, these teams couldn't make Final Fours, and this team is going to make a Final Four. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they will, but it's going to be it's a tough path.
So if the brackets were starting today, if today was the first day you'd ever seen it, and you only had the Sweet 16, right? Who stands out to you right now as the best team in this entire tournament?
I think Arizona still and Michigan have been the best teams so far. They've been the two most consistently elite, dominant teams. They haven't really looked bad at all. They look great every single minute that they've been playing in their two games so far in the tournament. But even coming in, you knew Duke was not healthy. Michigan, one injury, but Michigan was playing well for the most part. And Arizona was playing better than anybody. So to me, Arizona is still the best team in the country.
What about the opposite then? Who do you look at and say, man, they don't belong?
I mean, like I said before, I don't think it's fair to say no one belongs. They've all earned their place here. Texas is the one team that their path is questionable, even as an 11 seed. They were a play-in team for a reason. They've lost some bad games throughout the year, but they've also beaten really good teams. So that's why I say they don't not belong, but Purdue's got to be licking their chops right now for sure.
Well, let's expand that then to matchups. What if you could only watch one game this weekend, only one matchup in the Sweet 16? Which one would it be and why?
That's first of all very rude of you to ask because why would you even put that into the world?
Sorry.
Obviously,
I'm
that's terrible.
so sorry.
But I would go Houston, Illinois. I think the disparity in matchup in style, Illinois' best offense in the country. Houston, not analytically the best defense this year, but Houston defense is second to none. It's menacing. So one of those things has got to give. They're playing in Houston, Texas, with the likelihood of getting to a Final Four. So that one's going to be awesome.
We didn't touch through any of this on UConn taking on Michigan State too. We got two iconic brands there. When you look at Duke, when you look at Michigan State and UConn, do you think either of those, which of those two teams, will say this way, do you think has the best shot of actually winning a national championship?
I think it's UConn because of the experience and a little bit more confidence in the offensive consistency if it gets rolling. And they're similarly built, and I think Michigan State wins a little bit more through grit and energy and physicality, where UConn can kind of be a little more, I guess, just nicer on offense and just better, especially shooting the ball. Although Michigan State has shot the ball well, so it's tough to say one over the other. But I would go UConn if I had to pick one.
Let's stay in the East. I love that Fitz called this the Kardashian region because it's so true. It is spicy. It's the most dramatic season yet. John Shire, Rick Pitino, Tom Izzo, Danny Hurley, Duke St. John's, Michigan State, UConn. Who do you trust the most?
It's a crazy question because I want to say I trust John Shire the most, but it's hard. I don't because he doesn't have the proof of everything that the other coaches do. It really is the Kardashian region. That is so. You said that, and I was like, I don't get it. And then you said the most well-known, the most drama, and I was like, okay, the most famous people. I get it. And I'm sure Dan Hurley versus Tom Izzo will be very calm and normal, and Rick Pitino, exactly. So one coach I trust the most, I'd probably say still Dan Hurley out of the bunch, but that feels wrong saying no to the other ones.
Yeah, it's weird because there's so many brands. Like there's no right answer or wrong answer out of those coaches, particularly. Speaking of coaches, I want to get your thoughts on the other college basketball news that we have. North Carolina firing their head coach HUBERT DAVIS. Based on all the information you've had and what you've tracked this season, did North Carolina underperform to a level that firing made sense to you?
Yeah, and especially the way that he's consistently not been effective enough and adaptable enough in their teams throughout the year, and even mid-game adjustments like the VCU game where they just kind of crumble and collapse and then he just lets it happen. He's been living off of that Final Four run in his first year that was on the back of the players, to be completely honest, and I'll give him some credit for sure, obviously, but they've not been the same since, and him being a former player, they didn't know if they should keep him or not, and they kind of gave him a longer leash, which is why I don't like hiring former players for the most part, especially inexperienced ones. But yeah, it was time to go. It's a good thing for Carolina to move on.
Congratulations, Ryan Hammer. I just gave you the job of athletic director at North Carolina. Money is no object. There is no budget. Who is your first phone call to?
My first phone call is to Dusty May, but it's probably after the tournament because they're a little busy right now. I'd go Dusty May at Michigan. I think he has proven on a couple of levels how he knows how to build teams, how to coach teams schematically, how to recruit, and guys love him and they speak so highly of him. So I think he'd be the guy I'd call. He would say no, but I would start there.
Is North Carolina actually a better job than most of these? Like, because if you mentioned Michigan, we already talked about Golden at Florida. These coaches that are in the conversation for national championships year in and year out, does North Carolina still resonate at the level that they should leave?
Yeah, I think it does. I think there's still a lot of brand value in that on top of money and resources, obviously. I think that it's one of the 5 best jobs in the country. You can't say that it's not. Some of the jobs you can argue, depending on their situation, how much they're getting paid at Michigan, whatever, could be equivalent, but it's no way you can say that they're objectively better than Carolina.
You guys can follow him on social media at RyanHammer09. We appreciate your time and your expertise. Your math lesson actually paid off. It felt smarter. Let's keep it going, Ryan. We appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for all the great breakdowns.
Of course. Appreciate y'all. See ya.
And an
Great
awesome
stuff from
shirt.
Ryan. Follow him on
Appreciate
social media.
you.
All right. Yeah, 1,000%. Coming up next, figuring out what to make of the Denver Nuggets. Good, bad, ugly? We'll answer it.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure on myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Mike Washington, speed score wonder, good size, just downhill in a hurry, but just can never quite make that safety miss unless he just runs past him.
He blew up because of the combine and people were like, wow, who is this? And he has everything that, sleeper running backs people fall in love with, the size, the speed. There's usually a handful of guys like this. In this year's class, there's actually not a ton of guys like this that maybe boosted his stock a round or so.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flagg, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level, shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time All-Star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
What's up, Jason and Caroline? Here's what happened while you were sleeping in the NBA. The Denver Nuggets escaped the desert with a W, outlasting Phoenix 125-123. Jokic did Jokic things, notching another triple-double, 23, 17, and 17, but it was Jamal Murray who took over late in the fourth quarter, scoring 11 of his 21 points in the final frame to keep Denver alive. Even then, Devin Booker had a chance to win it at the buzzer, but he fell short. Denver survived and moved to 45-28, sitting fourth place in the Western Conference, where only 2.5 games separate the 3 and the 6 seeds, with the playoffs right around the corner. Which brings me to this. Of every team in the playoff picture right now in the Western Conference, is Denver the one with the widest spectrum of outcomes? Does any contender have a legitimate path to the title and a legitimate chance to lose in the first round? And does that answer change if Denver gets the 5th or the 6th seed? Let me know what you think. Back to you guys.
Great stuff from Titus, and it raises an interesting question because we've been on the Nuggets for a minute here on this show, as much as you can be, right? Because the Nuggets are kind of inconsistent. Last night was everything about the Nuggets that makes it really hard, Caroline. Like, you have a absolutely epic night from your stars, and you need every ounce of it to win. Like, you had that night from Jokic, and you still almost lost to the ... Suns. Like, I don't know. I keep thinking that the Nuggets are going to separate and show us exactly who the Nuggets are, but maybe they are showing us who they are in this process. And he's right. The wide range of outcomes feels staggering.
And look, I don't want to sit up here and act like the Suns are some rinky-dink horrific team, because they're not. But it's also not a team that you should be in tight contention with whenever Jamal Murray is being Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic is being Nikola Jokic. Like, there are times that the Nuggets almost make me feel like the Angels when Shohei and Mike Trout were both with the Angels, of like, oh, Shohei Ohtani, did something that hasn't been done since Babe Ruth did it, and the Angels lose 7-3, and it's like, what? How does that work? Like, how can you get a night like that from your superstar or superstars, as far as the Nuggets are concerned, and still lose or have it be a tight game going down the stretch? So, yes, it's hard to truly trust this Nuggets team. And we've talked about that a lot on this program. But I also think that might be kind of a tale of a lot of the teams in the West, or at least a tale of a lot of teams that we haven't been able to fully trust yet. I would say the Lakers are also one of those teams that have a very high floor, but also a pretty high ceiling, low floor. The words are hard. I would say the Cavs are another team, high ceiling, pretty low floor. But Titus brings up the standings. I do think that Denver, their number one prerogative, should be scratching and clawing their way into the 3 seed, because that 4-5 matchup right now, if the postseason started today, it would be Denver and Minnesota in a 4-5 matchup. Here for that, absolutely. But I think that you would feel more comfortable with the 3-6. Right now, it would be Lakers Rockets. Like, if the Nuggets, I think I would trust the Nuggets in a playoff series with the Rockets. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I think, I think the 3 seed will be highly coveted to avoid that 4-5 matchup.
What's insane to me is that the Nuggets sit right now at the 4 seed, a game ahead of the Rockets at the 6 seed, and 2 games back of the Lakers of the 3 seed. So you're really talking about 2.5 games separates 3 from 6. A bad 4 or 5 days of basketball could send a team all the way down to the 6 seed. That's pretty staggering when you think of it that way, right? Like, that shows you how evenly matched some of these teams are. And the funny thing is, because of the wide disparity of outcomes, Caroline, it becomes so easy to look at this and say, I don't trust the Nuggets. What I have to ask myself is, the best of the Nuggets, like, if we get the absolute best of the Denver Nuggets versus the absolute best of the LA Lakers on any given night, which of those 2 outcomes would I think, like, how does that play out? I take the best of the Nuggets over the best of the Lakers. I still trust the Nuggets more defensively than I trust the Lakers. So, if I have to take the best of the Nuggets against the best of the Rockets, I trust the Nuggets. The best of the Nuggets against the best of the Timberwolves, I trust the Nuggets across the board. So there is trust for them. But when you get into the worst of it, I think what bothers me is that we just had that sort of a night from Jokic, and you still needed a game winner. And you're right, Phoenix isn't trash, but Phoenix isn't as good as some of the teams they're going to play coming up. So I do I realize my hypocrisy. I don't trust the depth of Denver right now. I don't trust the consistency of Denver right now, but I could say that also about the Lakers. I could say that also about the Rockets. So I'm not sure that Denver separates the way I want them to separate, because I believe they should find themselves closer to the category of the Thunder and the Spurs, and they're simply not there right now.
No, they're not there right now. But also, to be fair, and it's, I think, a very fair point to bring up, comparing any team in the West to the Thunder, I wouldn't put anyone in that tier. Like, I wouldn't trust anyone against the Thunder. I wouldn't trust the best of the Nuggets against the Thunder. I wouldn't trust the best of the Spurs against the Thunder. And yes, I know the Spurs have bested the Thunder in the regular season. I hear you. I hear you, Spurs fans out there. But I'm still taking the Thunder in a 7-game series against anyone else in the West. So it's a tough conversation to have, because it's almost like the conversation is for the Lakers and for the Nuggets, for the Timberwolves, for the Rockets, any of these teams that are, in that second tier of the West. It's almost like, how long can you stay alive until you get beat by the Oklahoma City Thunder?
Well, and part of this has to speak to how good the West is overall. Like, I want to make sure that we're clear here. When we're talking about the worst of the West, like, I've been tough on the Rockets of note on this show in the last couple of weeks. I've been tough on the Rockets, right? You're still talking about a Rockets team that sits in the 6th seed right now that's 43-28, right? Like 43-28 at this point as the 6th seed. And there's no real delineation between where they are at 46-26 and the Lakers. These are all good basketball teams. Like, as much as I've been tough on KD and I've been tough on whether or not I think the Rockets are actually good enough to win, I think what we have to have is the caveat of win, parentheses, a championship. Because realistically, you're right. I believe OKC's head and shoulders above everybody else. So I don't care about the regular season matchups against the Spurs. I believe OKC is going to win the championship this year. I believe the Spurs are the next line down. The funny thing to me is that the Lakers, Nuggets, Timberwolves, and Rockets in any given year would all be right now hyped as good enough to win a championship. They're all doing what they need to do to be championship caliber teams. They're just not in a West that is that good. So it's funny to me that I'm sitting here talking about the inconsistency of the Nuggets. And the other day I was tough on KD and whether or not KD still resonates the same way. Tough on a lot of these teams. Tough on the Lakers over and over and over again. Clearly, because the only expectation I have for most of these teams is, man, you are so close to being championship worthy. The judge here isn't they suck. The judge is, can they get to a title? Can they hoist the Larry O'B? And I think the best of the Nuggets can. I don't think the best of the Lakers, Timberwolves, or Rockets can. So that's why I'm holding them to a different standard, honestly.
You don't think the best of the Lakers can get to a championship?
I believe that the best of the Lakers is not good enough defensively. And I know that's
Fair.
what we're going to say, frankly, about Houston has not played well enough defensively. Of late, I mean, the Nuggets, their own head coach came out and pointed out, we can't play defense like that. The Cavaliers head coach came out yesterday and said, if we keep giving up this many points, like, nobody's playing defense in the NBA. I really don't trust the Lakers defense night in and night out.
Breaking news. NBA doesn't play defense. Crazy. But you do mention, you said how, you've been hard on the Rockets. Look, KD's been hard on the Rockets. We've all been hard on the Rockets. It's because the Rockets aren't good enough around KD, and that's why I wouldn't trust the Rockets to make a run in the Western Conference in the postseason. I would say if the Lakers do punch their ticket to the NBA Finals, it's because their offense is their defense. And I think their offense can be so good that at times it's like they don't even need to play defense, because when you're putting up 140 points, they don't really need to stop anybody. You can allow 135 as long as you're putting up 140. So I think the absolute best of the Lakers, a lot would have to go their way, because to your point, I can't trust a team that doesn't play defense, or at least doesn't play defense consistently enough. I don't trust you to win enough playoff series to find yourself in an NBA Finals, and surely not to win a championship. But I think what makes the Lakers interesting is the fact that their offense is their defense. That when everyone is clicking, when Luka's good for 40 on any given night, when Austin Reeves is doing his thing, and when LeBron looks like 30-year-old LeBron and not 40-year-old LeBron, this team is absolutely terrifying. I mean, it's the reason we just saw them on a 9-game winning streak. So I wouldn't trust them to win a championship, but I think back to Titus's question, I think the Lakers have the greatest variance of outcomes, but the Nuggets are right there as well.
I can't get past 23, 17, and 17 and it took everything to win that game. The Nuggets are an enigma this year. It's going to make the playoffs absolutely incredible. We'll have every ounce of it covered across Yahoo Sports for you. A lot of content coming around NBA playoffs, so you don't want to miss it. We'll keep breaking down the NBA next. So the Orlando Magic are doing the opposite of what these teams are doing. Suddenly they're free falling. What's it mean for Orlando? Kendra Douglas joins us next. We'll get her thoughts on it.
What are some things about the Detroit Pistons that we on the outside might not know?
The culture, when I walked into this, the culture for me was pretty impressive. The way the players kind of come to bat for each other. And, Isaiah Stewart is not a guy off the court that is like an angry human being. In that Charlotte game, it was all he was saying in the locker room was like, I'm going to have you guys back. That's what I do. For me, it's impressive to see just how together everyone is and, the culture that they've continued to build.
I have Sadiq at the top like you. That's not the surprise. Sam Roush from Stanford, who had the big combine, unlike a lot of college tight ends that are productive, he actually, in my opinion, is playing the position like a pro right now. I love how he rumbles after the catch. I like Sam Roush quite a bit, Nate, because I just love that I could put him on the line of scrimmage, and I think he's tough as hell.
I do want to ask you about your teammate Jalen Coker. Can you kind of tell the people about Jalen, the person, the player, everything in between?
The people love him, the teammates love him, the coaches love him. And you see, as the year went on, how much faith, how much trust, how much belief that Bryce has in him, that the coaching staff has in him. I mean, he can do it all. He has good routes, very physical. He plays inside, outside. I mean, he does pretty much everything, man. And the Panthers definitely got a gem.
We've talked a lot, in fairness, about guys like Joe Burrow that are frustrated with losing. You know that experience. What advice would you give somebody that is so premier as a talent, but is with a franchise that can't seem to find a way to maximize it?
There's no guarantee for any of us, right, at the start of the season, you're going to end up with a championship. If you're an elite athlete, you embrace that challenge, such a special, unique thing, right? Because the best players in the league don't necessarily always get there, but generally the best teams do.
That's a final from Cleveland as the Cavs take down the Magic, and the Magic have now lost 6 straight games. Joining us now, Kendra Douglas, host and reporter for the Magic and FanDuel Sports. Kendra, really appreciate your time. I wish we'd have had you a couple weeks ago when everything was riding high. This is a team that went on a big winning streak. Now they're on a big losing streak. What's going wrong in Orlando?
It's tough too, because when you look at the games, they're not losing by drastic amounts. They're all very, very close. It's just really getting over that hump and trying to and playing hungry. One thing I think Coach Mosley was saying after the Indiana loss, he was like, you go like when you're down 10, you need to play like you're always down 10. Like you need to just play like you're always hunting, like you're always aggressive. So I think it's just, this team just got to figure it out. They will figure it out. There's still a lot of games to be played and left. But yeah, it's tough when you're riding a high and you were doing so well and now you're in this slump a little bit and you're trying to figure out what's working and what can happen. But if one thing about this team, resilience is their word. And so you just hope that now they're going to be resilient moving forward.
I mean, Fitz just mentioned it there. They were on an 8-game winning streak, now in the midst of a 6-game losing streak. If you had to diagnose it, what would you say is the root cause for some of this streakiness?
Ooh, I think, you know what it is? I think that teams who are also like struggling are kind of just, they need to play to their advantage too. They need to play to the level of that team. For example, like we talk about Indiana. One thing that Powell said after the game against Indiana, he was like, look, those guys were in the finals. Like they understand what it's like to make a deep run in the playoffs. They might not be great right now, but they do know what the fight is. They do know how to come together and win games. So I think with this team, it's got to be a moment where they look and they say, all right, how can we continue to, after coming out of the half in that third quarter, to really just lock in and figure out what's working for them offensively, what's working for them, to help them figure out how they can get downhill more. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, I think it's just that third quarter performance. They got to figure that out. And then after that, It's like the Magic. They are magical. They can win games from there.
I mean, Kendra, they're also young, right? Like, how much do you think youth plays into just sort of the formation of where they are right now?
Oh, I think 1,000% that plays into it. I think one of the coolest things and the best things that the Magic did was when they brought in Javon Carter in the trade deadline. And that's someone that's been a vet in this league for so long. He's been, with such good teams. He's been with Milwaukee. He's seen what that's like. And he's coming in, and the guys are like, oh, okay, cool. This is what a vet is telling us to do. Like, this is what a vet is making decisions, saying this, really no nonsense kind of player. So it's a really young squad. This is a very young team. I mean, I think what Desmond and Javon might be our oldest, and that's like maybe around 30. Like, so this is a very young squad. Paolo Banchero's still trying to figure out what's working for him. And you're bringing up guys who, are coming off the bench. So, for example, Tristan da Silva, he's been a guy that has to figure it out too, because with the injuries going on, he's been someone who's started, and then also he's someone who can bring a spark off the bench. So it's a lot with this team when it comes to injuries and their youth. I think those are the two things that are like really hurting this team.
You mentioned the injuries. Franz Wagner has been dealing with some lingering pain from a high ankle sprain. What's the latest on his availability?
Yeah, he's still nursing it. He's still figuring out, how to like get in the game and how to be able to function when and not be in pain. And I think the biggest thing you want from Franz is you want him to be fully healthy, just because he's such a good IQ kind of player. He brings so much to the team and so much of a spark that you just don't want him to feel in pain. And one thing you will know about Franz, if the man could go out there and play with a broken leg, if you could chop off his leg today and he'd say, I'm still out there, he would do it. So that like he is not enjoying the moment of not being out there and being able to play. But you have to look at the longevity, and you have to look at what you want from him in the future. And you can't put someone out there and take him out, and put someone out there and take him out. So right now he's continuing to nurse his injury and figure out the best move for him next.
What's all of this meant for Paulo and the amount that they're now asking Banchero to take on?
Well, isn't that what you want out of your franchise player? I mean, it is a lot. It is. But I would say that this is a guy that, you gave him the key and you're like, look, we understand that this is the situation, but we are relying on you. I think he does a really good job of handling it. I think he does a good job of handling that pressure. I mean, you can see what he's been doing since the All-Star break. He's been a force since coming back from the All-Star break, locking in. It was funny, one of the games, talking to him, he's like, I'm just out here balling. He's just like, look, I'm out here balling, having fun. And so it is a lot that you put on a young guy like him. But I think one of those things I always say this, pressure makes diamonds. And I think if you want a guy like him to, make it a long run in this league, these are the things that he's going to have to deal with. And so he'll learn from them and he'll grow from them moving forward.
And I think that's kind of what you want to hear from your superstar player, especially when there's some things still up in the air in terms of availability. Is, look, I'm just doing my thing. I'm just doing my job. But if you could pinpoint one reason for optimism and maybe one reason for concern for the Magic, one, finding themselves in the postseason, and two, making a run in the postseason.
Optimism. Playoff P is a whole different level of a player. The way he plays in the playoffs I think brings so much energy to the group. Even I think the Cleveland series was one of my favorites watching him. It was just a dynamic. I mean, this guy was literally sweaty. Like the weight was on him still of just like having to carry and do so much. So I think Playoff P is definitely someone you want to look out for when you look at the optimism of this team. I think getting guys healthy and figuring it out. Desmond Bane, another guy that when they brought him in, they asked him, look, this is what we need you for, but yet he's still figured out a way to knock down shots for this Magic squad. And I think those are the guys that you like to have in your group when you're talking about optimism. Concern, I just think, again, it just goes back to the injuries. I mean, you talk about guys who are out right now, and those are guys who are crucial. You talk about Anthony Black, you talk about Franz Wagner, and those are crucial guys that, really play a role within this team. So I think those would be the level of concern that you would just kind of think of just, wanting to have your team whole and healthy going into the playoffs.
Kendra, you've mentioned Desmond Bane a couple of times, right? Now we're seeing him 72 games this year. He's been an Ironman.
Mhm.
What's the biggest thing that you've seen from him and his growth this year with Orlando?
Oh, I think his will to find a way to knock down shots. Because if you think about it, yes, we know the whole story was the Magic can't shoot threes. And so you get a guy like Desmond Bane into the mix, and you're like, all right, we need you to shoot threes. And this is his first year figuring it out. And this is his first year trying to find his spots. And the guy's trying to find him open. And what I think has been so cool and so instrumental about Desmond Bane is the way that he's just been so aggressive in knocking down shots and figuring out a way and creating opportunities for him and the team. And I think that shows you the kind of player he is. I think that shows you the level of, maturity. I think that shows the level of growth he's had within his development in the NBA, and realizing all right, they're not getting me open and where I need to be. So I'm just gonna not, I'm just gonna pass it and move on. But no, he's like, I'm gonna create this shot. I'm gonna find opportunities for this team and find opportunities for myself. And I think that has been such an amazing thing to watch from Desmond Bane.
We know that Desmond Bane's impact has been, palpable for the Magic this season. Paolo Banchero, obviously the superstar, the franchise player on this team. You get to be in this locker room and with this team every single day. Who's a player and what's a name maybe that we don't know, that maybe casual NBA fans don't know, that you feel like is a cornerstone and a cog for this team?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like everyone is really helpful for our team. Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm trying to think of maybe one of our guys. I think someone who I would say Tristan da Silva has done really well this year so far for this team. And I think he's a name that's, coming up. I think everyone knows the guy is on our team. You have Wendell Carter Jr. He's been dominant for them. And those guys have been a force. But I think Tristan has definitely done such a good job this season of finding that balance of still understanding his role, because it is tough. I mean, you go into, training camp and you kind of understand where your role is, but then injuries come and you have to go with that next man up mentality. And he's been a guy that I think has done very well in that next man up mentality. One night he's starting, the next night he's coming off the bench, the next 3 or 4 nights he's starting, and the next night that can be hard for a player, honestly, it can be. But he's done it with effortlessly, and he's done it with ease. And so I think that's someone that people should look out for sure.
All right, so let's talk playoffs. Let's have let's be positive for a minute and think playoff positivity, right? Is there a team that you look out there and say, man, if the Magic could get this team, they could actually win that series?
Okay, hear me out. Because I feel like fans are going to be like, what? Detroit Pistons. Hear me out. The way the Magic have played the Pistons this year has been incredible. The next best one I would say would be New York, but I mean, honestly, that's just a bloodbath right there. But the way the Magic and the Pistons are able to compete, it is so good. For starters, you got 2 coaches who are best friends, and JB Bickerstaff and Coach Jamal Mosley. They're such good friends. They very much understand each other. Then you have these amazing players and, hoping, the best for Cade and whatever happens in his situation. But you talk about just what Detroit has brought to the table and how they've grown and the way that the Magic play each other. I remember it was the NBA Cup, and it was that game for the NBA Cup that the Magic ended up winning against the Pistons to move forward. And that alone, I was like, this has to be a playoff. This has to be a playoff. It is so good. They're so dynamic. These teams are so dynamic when they play against each other that, yes, I know it sounds crazy. Give me Detroit. Give me Detroit.
I love this.
She wants that smoke, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll stick on the playoff theme here as well, as we're thinking good vibes and manifesting that, putting that out into the universe. What's this team's ceiling realistically in the postseason, do you think?
I mean, I think they're in charge of their own ceiling, to be honest. I think that they can do it. I think that you saw the way that they played against the Lakers and the Clippers when we were on the West Coast. And I think the sky's the limit for them. I think it's just a matter of like, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to continue to move forward? How seriously do you want to be taken? So I think it's more so like, I think the ceiling is high for them. I think that this is a young squad, yes, but they're a very hungry squad and they're a hungry team. And I think that they're going to learn from these couple of losses that have happened. And I think get back into the win column and be ready to go when it comes to the playoffs. But you have to look in the mirror. That's what I would say in that sense. Like, you have to ask yourself, how bad do you want it? Because the sky's the limit for this team, honestly. The games that because even you can say last night, the way that they played against Cleveland, yes, they lost, but they were in it. They were in it until the very end. And so I think it's just, fine tuning a couple of little things. And then, yeah, the ceiling's high for this team for sure.
Now that we've been so positive, Kendra, before we get you out of here, we got to ask you, as a North Carolina alum, right, and somebody that covers this sport, Hubert Davis no longer the head coach there. As an alum, what was your reaction to the news?
It was one of those things where it was bittersweet. I kind of felt like it was going to happen just because the way in the day and age of college basketball right now, it's hard to be a college basketball coach right now. It just is. And I think that with what's going on within college basketball right now and with NIL and constantly having to recreate teams, like a lot of these guys just leave after 1 year and they go somewhere else. It is so difficult. But the problem is that like you're talking about a program that has a history of going deep into the playoffs and going deep into the NCAA tournament and going and making a run and winning and then going into the NBA. And I haven't heard too many of my people in the NBA in a while. So I understand the frustration, and we want to see this organization do well. We want to see it grow. We want to see them make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. And so it's a tough one. I low-key wish he could have had one more year to figure it out, but I understand what's happening. So I think I've seen mixed reviews. My timeline right now is like full of people either really happy from UNC or really sad. And I'm kind of like the in-between of like, I'm really sad because I wanted to see him succeed. But like, I'm also like, we gotta win. We gotta go deep. We gotta make a deep run. And like, this is what UNC basketball is about. It pains me to see that Duke is actually still in the tournament. That is very painful to see.
God, well, I'm sorry we ended you on a painful note, but here's the thing: when Orlando gets Detroit in the first round, like when we get to that playoff action, you got to come back and hang out with us. Got to keep breaking it down, especially if the Magic go on a magical run. Kendra, we really appreciate your time and expertise. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Great stuff from Kendra. All right, coming up, Tiger return to the TGL. What's it mean for the Masters? We'll break it down.
Criticism like that from a coach in the moment, how are you feeling when that's happening and the film's on screen?
Yeah, man, I think it's you listen more to the message and not the tone of the message. I mean, I think it's actually better to get called out than to not, because it shows not only like you're not worried about getting your feelings hurt. Like they're not worried about hurting my feelings. And that's something I love about our coach. Like he's not really worried about hurting your feelings. He's going to tell you, shoot it to you straight. And for me, like I've always thrived under coaches that do that.
We are ranking the biggest robberies in MLS histories, the players who looked at their team owners and said, thanks for the cash, and gave absolutely nothing in return. If your team is on this list, we are very, very sorry. Danielson, FC Dallas. His contract was for $879,000.
If you're watching this, look at his photo. He don't even look interested to be there in the photo.
With 10 appearances, he effectively got nearly $100,000 per game.
I'm sitting there watching Unreal, and they're talking about you in WWE at the Royal Rumble, just being thrown into the ring. You ever getting back in the ring for one of those opportunities again after that injury?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we got WrestleMania coming up, so you maybe see me in there, you maybe not. I'm just not trying to get beat up, but we'll see. We'll see. Like I got beat up too much times. I can't. My body can't take that anymore.
Little teaser from the one and only Nate Diaz. Unfinished business. And then he expanded on that on Twitter and said, I'll see you soon. I'm coming.
What about Dustin? Dustin versus Nate. Big fight. That could be a co-main or a main for a big fight card.
One that we always wanted to see.
One that Dustin has said, that'll get me out of retirement. The UFC could use him more than ever. They need stars now.
Tiger was in the building to return to competitive golf for the TGL Finals after recovering from, stop me if you've heard this before, back surgery. We got Tiger back in the TGL, and frankly, Caroline, anytime Tiger is playing golf, even if it's simulated golf with screens and all sorts of different sort of situations, we still flock to watch it, right? Everybody was analyzing a missed putt from Tiger in the TGL, right? Because all of this immediately makes people salivate at the concept of the Masters. I need to stress, playing TGL golf, nothing like playing at Augusta, right? But at least if you're a golf fanatic that loves Tiger, this gave everybody that little bit of drug we love to call hope.
And look, it's always a great opportunity and a great privilege to watch Tiger Woods play the game of golf. We had this conversation recently about, are we taking LeBron James for granted? And I do think there's probably some sports fans out there that are, because you don't realize what you have until it's gone. And I don't want all of us as sports fans and appreciators of greatness to get into the habit of taking greatness for granted. So I want to put that out there, that it's always a great privilege, truly, to watch someone great do what they do. And watching Tiger Woods play golf is a privilege. And look, it's simulated golf, it's silly golf, it's not real golf, but it's still fun. And it's still fun to see the camaraderie. And I think that's what's fun about the TGL, is it's palatable for the average, casual golf fan out there, which I would put myself into that category. The number of times I've fallen asleep on the couch watching golf, it's a lot, maybe more than I would like to admit. But TGL is fun. It's interactive, watching the fans interact with the players and the players interact with each other, the teams interacting with one another. It's always a fun thing to watch. But I don't want to get our hopes up about, Tiger and the Masters. Because watching Tiger play golf, I just said, is a privilege. Watching Tiger play at Augusta is a privilege. I mean, that's the greatest environment in golf and the greatest player, one of the greatest players we've ever seen play the sport. But I always use this, if you watch Yahoo Sports Daily a lot, first of all, thank you, appreciate you. You've probably heard me say this before, and it's a line from The Dark Knight. Don't live too long to see yourself become the villain, which is essentially just what I use it as a way of know when to say goodbye. Don't let anyone's lasting image of you doing anything be a negative one. And I don't want to see Tiger live so long to see himself become a negative story. He's not going to be a villain. I'm not saying that, but don't live so long, don't play so long to see yourself become a shell of what you used to be. I don't want my last image of Tiger Woods being, limping on the green at Augusta, because we've seen that before. And it was really difficult to watch. I'm not going to be someone to tell a goat when to walk away, because he has earned the right to step away from the game in his own right and on his own timeline. But it has been hard to watch before, Fitzy. I don't want to see it again.
You're 1,000% right. Look, I'm not here to tell Tiger whether he can play in the Masters. That's up to him and his body and his family and everybody to make those decisions. I just don't want to see it. And to be very real, as you mentioned, I think there's a fine line between being a shining light that makes people want to watch something, that brings people to a sport. There's a fine line between being that shining light that makes everybody suddenly gravitate towards what you do. That's the shining light that Tiger has been for generations over golf. One day you can wake up and instead of a shining light, you are instead a dark cloud. And I think at this point, there's a sort of a cloud over golf. Excuse me. As many times as we've talked about the fact that nobody else can rise when we're constantly talking about where Tiger has been. We constantly talk about the fact that Tiger might play in the Masters. And the more that we look at these things, the more it just continues to be a cloud that I think sort of hangs over everybody else that is trying to have their Tiger moment. Everybody else is trying to become the next Tiger. Everybody else is trying to become the next brand. I think it's unfortunate that nobody can ever be the next Tiger. We're never going to see something like this. It's like asking for the next Shohei. It's not going to happen. And unfortunately, every single time he steps on, instead of just appreciating we're getting one more, it's just never feels like that's enough. It's always, now we have to have a bigger conversation. How much more can Tiger do? What's next for Tiger? All of these things. Unfortunately for golf just needs to find its legs without Tiger being any part of it. I long for a day when we don't mention Tiger at all when we talk about golf, because it means that suddenly the sport has found the legs without him. The stars have risen without him. Suddenly there has to be this moment. And, you know, in professional wrestling, as we joke about all the time, there's something called getting over, where if you're a legend, sometimes you just have to lose to somebody to get them over and make them a fan favorite. I need Tiger to have that moment where he gets somebody over. I need less Tiger and more of the rest of the personalities in golf. And I realize everybody wants to keep watching it. That's fine. If you want to watch Tiger, that's fine. But at some point, golf has got to figure out how to get out of the shadow of any sort of Tiger Woods commentary, because I don't think that the sport can be the best for the next generation until that happens. Speaking of next generations, NBA getting ready for the next generation that now got one step closer to expansion. Breaking news as we get it from Shams coming in. The NBA Board of Governors has approved a vote for the league to explore bids and applicants for expansion teams exclusively in Vegas and Seattle. A bidding process expected to generate offers in the $7 to $10 billion range for each team. NBA action likely coming. I will note one other thing to point out. Shams also pointed out the NBA will examine the bids over the next several months and whether to execute the new franchise purchases now or in a few years. So this doesn't mean that we're necessarily getting basketball in these cities in the next 12 months, but it does mean that the NBA has said if we're going to expand, when we're going to expand, I should say, it will be to Seattle and Vegas, which makes the Vegas kid in me very happy, Caroline. I'm not going to lie.
Yay!
NBA action. Let's go.
Oh, and these are two cities that deserve NBA teams. I would love one in St. Louis, but I understand that St. Louis maybe is not the same draw as Las Vegas. But a basketball team in Vegas and a basketball team back in Seattle. I mean, we've all been begging and pleading for the Supersonics to get back into the NBA ever since they left. So this is a great day. This is a great moment. This is a great thing for the NBA. Important to point out that it's not inevitable, but this is yet a next step to expanding in the NBA. And I think expansion is always a positive thing, especially in cities that are ready for a team from that league. 7 to 10 billion though. Ooh, Lord. Who in the world, like, who can pay that? I would assume that both Seattle and Las Vegas have arenas that are ready to house an NBA team. So it would be 7 to 10 billion for the expansion fee and not another billion to 2 billion to 3 billion that it would take to build an arena. But who in the world can pay that? Steve Ballmer's already taken.
There are arenas in Vegas, obviously plenty, but there's also been much talk about building a multi-billion-dollar arena also specific to the NBA, which also raises these costs. Right. And if a brand new expansion team that's never played a single second of basketball is valued at $10 billion, what are the Lakers going to be valued at? Like we are reaching a spot with these valuations where it's absolutely insane. So every single team is going to make some money from the ownership group that's going to have to pay a bid to come in. But really, when they're saying valued at $7 to $10 billion, what they're doing is revaluing the entire league. I mean, if that team, I mentioned the Lakers, what about the Knicks, right? Like some of the biggest brands in all of sports are now going to be looking around and saying, we're worth what? Like private equity is going to be the inevitability in the NBA for ownership, simply because you're right, Caroline, there aren't a lot of people that can spend the $10 million whatever it's going to cost to actually get into this league with that valuation, plus payroll, plus arenas, plus all of this. But it's an exciting time for the NBA simply because I think there are plenty of cities that have been looking for expansion. This is a great moment.
This is a great moment for the league too, because there's been so much talk about, viewership numbers being down or investment into the NBA being down. Why are these TV deals worth so much if viewership is down? All of these, the anti-NBA rhetoric. But I think this is just proof that the NBA is still an incredibly valuable product. And the reason why, these potential sales have been approved or potential expansions have been approved is because there are people that are interested and want to have a piece of NBA expansion. It's an exciting day for the league and for sports fans.
Yeah, we've got plenty to talk about tomorrow on this. Come back, see us at 9 a.m. Eastern, Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz.